Yeah, I have to give props to Uncivil Law and even Nate the lawyer. They both called this. And I think when they called it, I think when they said, we think this could be dismissed on grounds of jurisdiction, I think a lot of people got a little upset with them and was like, what? And kind of viewed them as on Katie's side. Kind of looking back now, I get what they're saying. They was not looking at this from a biased standpoint. Whereas me, I'm like, no, it shouldn't be dismissed. Like, they proved jurisdiction. Lori Ann over there, they know way more than I know. They know way more than just the average. This is law. This is what they do. So I really do feel like they were being a little bit more unbiased than I was. Even Uncivil saying that Lori Ann, her declaration and her part in this was, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. Once again, I was like, are you crazy? Yes, it matters. It didn't, you guys. And I think it does prove that Uncivil knew what he was talking about. And while sometimes I'm sitting over here and I'm being so biased that I'm even arguing with a lawyer, I'm even over here like, what are you talking about? You don't know what you're talking about. It proves that these lawyers know what they're talking about.
Boom. Kurt, we know what we're talking about.
I know we're talking about the end of stage one.
Hey, welcome to this channel. My name is Nate the lawyer with my brother from another mother, Uncivil Law. Sorry about the echo, but I am in a very enclosed room because, I am on vacation. But how has it been, brother? What's been going on?
Well, we finally figured out the answer of jurisdiction, which turned out to be no. After 65 filings, 5 months, and insert dollar figure here, 150,000, 250,000 between the both sides. We figured out the answer was no. The question was here, and the answer was no. So that's what we've determined so far. Here, no. $200,000. What will tomorrow bring?
Somebody said, Nate the lawyer, are you in a closet? No, I'm in we have a suite, so the bathroom is like huge, so I'm in the bathroom, but it's like echoey, so it's just like one of those things, you know what I'm saying? Because you got to find a good spot. Here it is. Nate streaming from the closet. Yes, thank you, Secret Squirrel.
he will come out of the closet when he's ready.
Oh. But listen, you know what? I do want to say one thing. I want to start this off by saying I didn't know how serious this case was for some of these YouTubers out here. I just didn't. And what do I mean by that? What do I mean by that? I listened to other coverage of us lawyers. And one thing I heard people kept saying was that this case was justice for them too, because of the things that Katie has done to them, right? Like LAB and all these other people, I felt like this case was about me because she's defamed me. She's done these horrible things to me. So I think we didn't realize that when we were doing our analysis that, these people felt that this was like some type of justice for them, and the problem is that when you're doing these legal analysis, sometimes we're so cold to the facts that we forget, there are other people out there with other vested interests. So I think that's the reason why we were taking a lot of heat for the predictions we were making, because our predictions were against the grain. A lot of people wanted Katie to go down, and us saying, based on the law and based on the commentary, I got to give you credit. You didn't call the outcome, but you did call the reasoning. Everything the judge was writing in there was exactly what you said. So.
I wasn't sold that this was going to be the outcome. I wasn't one to predict it, but the reasoning was right on track. So it mirrored my own thinking. So that was very validating for me. I was like, this is right along the lines of what I thought was right. I was doubtful we would get there, but hey, it's nice to be pleasantly surprised once in a while. It's like a pleasant surprise.
Well, we're definitely going to go over the case, and we're going to go over all the pieces I think that are important to this case, because there were a lot of moving pieces here that I think a lot of people are confused about how to move forward. So we're going to try to answer all those questions, while I'm here next to my jacuzzi now in the bathroom talking to you guys about it. So, I do want to just make it very clear that for those of you who've been hurt by Katie, because we talk about it so nonchalantly and so glib and, make jokes about it, if you have some serious pain and this was justice for you and this outcome is not what you expected, I'm sorry for your pain. I'm sorry that this, and hopefully you will get justice from this, if they choose to refile. But, our commentary is not based on how bad a person one party is or not. It's just based on what's presented in front of us and what the law actually says. Now, we all have our biases, but that's all that we try to do, right? And it's funny because Kurt doesn't know anything about these people. I'm the one who introduced this to Kurt, and I feel kind of bad that I introduced you to this madness, but I'm the one who told him, check out this case. It'll be interesting. And it happened to be.
Look at this case, he says. It might be interesting, he says. It'll be good for a view or two, he says.
That's exactly what I said. But, it was. This is a gold mine. So, so let's start out this. There are some good things for this ruling, right? And first thing I put on my list is YouTubers and personal jurisdiction, right? We talked about this, right, Kurt, about how this was actually a good thing. This outcome was a good outcome for those of us on YouTube. And you had some interesting thoughts about it. You mind sharing them?
Yeah,
Kurt?
I mean, the concerns that I had in terms of how this was going to impact everybody is there's Tati's logic, as it seemed to me, the core of her reasoning was Katie Joy has viewers in Washington, subscribers in Washington, super chats in Washington, fans in Washington, and the problem was that you could take that and it would be true for basically every state. It would have to be. Katie Joy has 130,000 give or take subscribers. She's too big not to. I only have 25,000 subscribers. I'm too big not to. It's too big. It's too much to just think like I don't have subscribers everywhere. And so the problem was, if you took Tati's theory of the case, it would mean there's universal jurisdiction. It would mean that a YouTuber or a Twitch person or an Instagram person or a TikTok person or basically anyone with any social media following of a sufficient size, and we're not even talking huge numbers. 25,000 subs on YouTube is not huge numbers by the scale that these things are normally mentioned in. So we're not even talking huge numbers, but anyone of any size at all who's getting support would be subject to jurisdiction everywhere. And then some people will say, well, just don't defame people and you'll be fine. I'm like, that's a little bit like saying if you have nothing to fear, you have nothing to hide. So you should just open your house to the police, because why not just invite the police in? You have nothing to hide. So what are you afraid of? It's like, that doesn't really work. Anyone who wants to silence anyone could just sue them for anywhere, and it just creates too much exposure. So I was like, my reasoning for why I wanted this ruling was there's nothing special about Washington. And that's basically what the judge's ruling boils down to. So yeah, the judge and I are of one mind on this. There's nothing special about Washington. So
agreed.
You can't sue her here. It makes sense to me.
And I think the judge was, I think the judge's ruling, like you were saying, I think you're dead on. I think it opens it up to too much litigation versus YouTubers. I say something bad and I could be held into an Alaskan court, a Hawaiian court. That's halfway across the country. That's almost halfway across the planet in some cases. I can go to Guam. So it just was too expansive of the law. And one of the key factors that I always said when it comes to jurisdiction is it fair to hold the defendant into this court, based on these incidental contexts. And I don't think it is. I don't think it was enough. And I think as a YouTuber and most of us YouTubers, we should be happy about this outcome, because this limits the reach of our exposure through personal jurisdiction. Just because I put content out and people passively can recall it from their different jurisdictions doesn't avail me to those states for the purposes of jurisdiction. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, yeah. And the exposure is immense. It could be even someone sharing their video on Facebook with a friend, and somehow it gets viral. And maybe now they're exposed because of this one video they made. I mean, the limits of the theory were really problematic. And the background on which I'm casting this thinking on in terms of personal jurisdiction is against universal jurisdiction. The idea of personal jurisdiction, we wouldn't even have the term personal jurisdiction if we had universal jurisdiction. The entire concept, since it was invented, has been about limited. You're only available in certain places, not everywhere. So the whole concept has been based on limitations about where a person can be justly judged. And so you're suddenly taking this from here's some limited places in the law to now suddenly all the places. And it gets even worse than that potentially because, if you commit a tort in the United States, at least hypothetically, you can be sued no matter where you are in the world. So some Australian is making a video and uploads it to YouTube, and they defame someone in, Florida. It's like there's no limitations to this. So yeah, there's nothing special here was my motif, and that was the judge's decision. So
I think the interesting part is that I think our reasoning was correct. And I think that's the thing that we can, hold back. We can say, well, our reasons why we believe this was the appropriate outcome. And I was just a little bit more confident than you were in it, but I think we both really came to the same conclusion. You said it was a live, it's a live issue. Was it? You thought the defamation issue was one that would be the real Achilles heel here, but I thought this was still live on defamation. It just happened to be that way. Another thing I wanted to bring up was the death threats and the death threats to people's children, all that stuff. I think that's another. That's a bad thing that happened in this case, and I think that's something that we have to address. I
guess I don't understand it completely. I don't even understand necessarily people being this invested in it, but maybe it's just because it's not something I'm deeply invested in. But I've never felt so passionate about something that I want to give death threats to somebody.
Well, did you heard about the whole, about people saying that this was justice for them, and they felt that, this was a fight for them. Tati was fighting for all the bodies that Katie had left behind. That's kind of where I think that animosity was coming from. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, for better or worse, and it's probably for better, we judge each situation unto itself. Whether or not Katie has done bad things somewhere else. The question we were asking at the moment was, has she done bad things with respect to Tati? And we can answer that question, and that may or may not influence the answer or any other question. I think law is better about compartmentalizing. Law is better about keeping issues to the issue at hand and trying to, just because someone has done bad things doesn't mean they've done this bad thing. We don't really like propensity evidence, because they've done this 50 times. That means the 51st time, surely they did it. It's like, no, we kind of still want evidence the 51st time too. We'll be a little bit more skeptical if they get up on the stand and say, I didn't do it with 50 convictions. Because I'm like, oh no, your credibility is running a little thin there with the 50 other convictions on the same exact issue. But all else being equal, it's like, yeah, we would still like some evidence that maybe he's involved the 51st time too.
Yeah.
And I think we all want that at some level. It's just because I've done bad things in the past doesn't mean I'm perpetually guilty. And just because it doesn't necessarily mean I should be trustworthy in the future, but it also doesn't mean I should be automatically convicted. So the thing that sort of surprises me about this and all of it is people seem to be unable to put the shoe on the other foot and be like, what if it was someone I liked? That's the thing that's sort of troubling, that is a little bit mind-blowing to me, because I tried to make this point a couple times, a couple different ways, about saying someone's going to be on the wrong side of the V mark. It's like, we want Katie responsible. She has this subscriber, she has this fan, she has this thing. Of course she'd be held responsible. And I'm like, man, you can break out, you can cook an egg. You can cook an egg because you don't need an egg timer from how long it's going to take until someone is being sued that you like. It's like the egg's only half boiled by the time someone's on the wrong side. That's not fair. They only have one subscriber. They only have one super chatter. They only have one, person. It's like, how can you not see that this will swing both ways? That's the thing that sort of blows my mind when it comes to things. It's like, we want Katie to be punished, but you do realize that if you have this standard, we have to apply it everywhere, kind of consistently. So, like, are you sure? That part confuses me.
Well, that's why they call it the drama community. And again, I just want to be very clear: death threats, harassment, attacking people's children, assaults as children. Like at a point, it just got ridiculous. And there's also the FBI involved, and hopefully all those who were involved in death threats, hacking, so forth. So we'll be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But that's one of I think the bad things. It really showed the underbelly of the commentary community and what it could be. And hopefully, law enforcement will get into that. What about the next thing on my list is the things that are still in effect. So the first thing I want to make sure I tell people is that KJ may have won the battle, but the war obviously still goes on, right? So if Saltz chooses to file again in Minnesota, that's just if Tati chooses to file again in Minnesota, which seems like everybody thinks that is going to happen. First, you have party opponent admissions. So everything that Katie's still saying is still live. If she still talks about the other side, if she still makes certain statements and stuff, that can still be used against her because she's still a party opponent. So she still would have to be worried about what she's going to say. What do you think about that, Kurt?
Yeah, I mean, I just the whole thing confuses me about how people look at these things, but I don't know. Maybe Emily D. Baker was also talking about this a little bit. How some people have an easier time detaching themselves from what they want to be from what is, or their own preferences about what is. Even in law school, I knew people like this, although there were fewer, and I don't think to the same degree, where people were like, "Well, that's not fair because it's just the wrong outcome."
Yeah.
And I certainly, there are times in law, and there's still some times where I think the wrong outcome, because I think the law got it wrong. The law itself is wrong and the law should be changed, but I'm happy to do it universally. But yeah, I guess I had less of a problem with detaching the emotion. There's the great line I always like is that, an advocate can be an advocate can be passionate, but justice is cold-blooded.
Yeah.
It's like you have to be very cold-blooded, very methodical. It's like you just drain all the emotion. In fact, here's the facts, here's the law.
Yeah.
What do you think? And it's like you can't just, here's the facts, here's the law. Are they a good person or a bad person? Doesn't matter. Are they, is it this true or this true? It's like, no, it doesn't matter. Here's the facts, here's the law, just one step at a time. And so I think I have a better time about doing that. The amount of people who thought I was biased and in it or the tank for one reason or another, and then like my thinking matches the judge thinking, that was very redemptive. So it's like I felt pretty good. It's like, maybe I do know some of the things I'm talking about. So
No, it is vindicating, but it's good. It's good that it lets you know that we're not that far off. We've been writing a whole bunch of things coming forward, though, to be honest with you. So this wasn't really something that huge of a surprise, but it's just good that other people can now see that we know we're talking two things. We know what we're talking about, and we're just not telling you what you want to hear. We're telling you what we think is the best outcome based on.
I did get a little love from KJ specifically on this point in a recent live where KJ was saying that uncivil was what was the word she used? Something like neutral or unbiased. Yeah. And she also said that I wasn't like chasing revenue. That I was forfeiting revenue in order to be more honest. So I was like, well, I'm glad you think that. I wonder if you think that because I wound up me being right. It was favorable to you. But, we won't look a gift horse and too hard in the mouth. So yeah.
So the next thing on my list is about not being able to delete your shit. Now, the thing is that some people are saying that Katie can delete stuff. Some people are saying it cannot. Now, I'm going to give you my opinion. I believe that the rule is if you can reasonably anticipate litigation, you can't delete that shit.
Sure.
And I think somebody just suing you, getting dismissed without prejudice for jurisdiction, and the person screaming, "We'll see you in Minnesota." I think that's reasonable anticipation of litigation. And I think you still can't delete your shit because if you do, you could get a negative inference. What do you feel about that? What do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think it would help to have a formal letter, which doesn't take any time at all to draft and to send over, being like, we still want to, but the order itself from the court isn't there. But then again, the order itself is a little bit redundant because there is a duty to maintain evidence, as Nate says. Like this is just a duty that exists, period. You have to maintain evidence and not delete it when you have reasonable anticipation of litigation. When you delete stuff, even though you have reasonable anticipation, they call it spoliation. Why they call it that, I don't know, but they do. They have a term for it. So so you can't do that. So the order to not delete your shit doesn't exist. The order doesn't, but that doesn't necessarily mean the obligation doesn't, because the obligation preceded the order anyway. And so as long as they've given some sort of notice that this is ongoing, which I assume they did rapidly, and it's like she can't delete her stuff any more than she did before.
But the thing is that also if this was to go to the test, could somebody reasonably foresee that they were going to sue us for defamation again after doing it's after spending almost $150,000-$200,000 on a motion to dismiss, then I think the safest course of action is not to delete your shit, or you're going to be an argument about spoliation. You know what I'm saying? But so you're right. So I think you're right about that. But I just don't think it's prudent. I don't think any lawyer would tell her she can delete all that stuff, right? No, you're taking a big gamble by doing it. That's just it. So now let's talk about the dismissal. Wrong court. This was not on the merits. We have also Washington, Minnesota court, but Washington law possibly, and the statute of limitations is still live. So we can go through each one of those. So this dismissal was just more or less saying you're in the wrong goddamn court, right? And it's funny because all the commentators on the plate, everybody was talking about this was right jurisdiction. And me and you kept saying and it's funny because we said this, I think, on almost every stream. If it fails for jurisdiction, they're going to Minnesota. And guess what? Everybody uniformly is saying, where's it going? Minnesota, right? So it's like unison. Everybody in unison says it's going to Minnesota. Nobody was saying Minnesota before we started saying. Now everybody's saying file it because we all know that's the place where you're going to file Minnesota. So do you think this case is going to be filed again in Minnesota?
I think the odds strongly favor it. I mean, they spent a ridiculous amount of money to answer a question that doesn't really make sense. I don't know if it made sense to someone else at some point. Because especially in these days with virtual courtrooms and virtual appearances, I don't know that it makes sense to spend this kind of money fighting the jurisdiction issue, but apparently it made sense to somebody. But yeah, I'd imagine that they're going to go again. Now, I would think they'd spend a little bit of time. There's nothing stopping them from filing. They can file immediately if they want. But I think that they will probably spend more time cleaning it up because they have the benefit of all this wonderful commentary that we've been giving them for free and the things they've learned along the way. So they can correct their filing because we're starting over from zero. So we get another one. So we get another free bite at the apple. And then of course you get one correction on top of that for free. So now you get an extra correction for free. So why not spend a month? And why not spend a month cleaning it up? Maybe removing some things, adding new causes of action, maybe, perhaps from Minnesota specifically. I've made this point as well, and I might as well make it again, that just because we're in a Minnesota court doesn't necessarily mean Minnesota law will apply, because we could still be applying Washington law. So the only question is who's going to hear the case, not necessarily what law would apply. So Tati could still sue for the basis of harm in Washington under Washington law if she wants to, even though it's a Minnesota court. It's not that big a deal. The court just takes the Washington books and pushes them aside and takes the Minnesota books off and gets the Washington books. Can I borrow your book? And looks at those and no big deal. So yeah, but I would imagine that they're going to spend, let's say a month cleaning this up, fixing some problems, fixing some holes, making it better. And should we just get started working on that motion to dismiss right now? You and I can start working on that motion to dismiss right now for when it is eventually filed, so we can be ready same day.
Yeah. I think this is an easy motion to dismiss. I think a 2L can write this. This is an easy motion to dismiss to write for this, failure to state a claim. You got a whole bunch of opinions in there. You got a whole bunch of actual malice. Mm-hmm. The gauntlet is there. So if this survives a motion to dismiss, I would honestly be shocked, for failure to state a claim. That would be the ultimate. The ultimate power move, though, is you give the opposing side the motion to dismiss in advance and be like, by the way, when you file your complaint, could you please attach this as Exhibit A? That'd be a great power move. Because you already got the complaint.
Yeah.
It's EDB, Emily D. Baker.
Emily D. Baker in the house.
But now KJ has tipped her hand. I think they will wait to see what she says in this between time then file. I think so too, but I still think, I'm just going to be honest. I still think I thought the defamation was worse than the jurisdiction. I'm more confident the defamation is not going to survive than the jurisdiction. I was like, all right, but the defamation I think is gone. I think
KJ has better odds on the defamation given what I understand at this point. Yeah.
Erie Doctrine. John O'Brien's got to be an attorney. Erie Bryan. Erie Doctrine. Hello. Good to see you, gentlemen, tonight. Yeah. Good to see you, too. Yeah, Erie Doctrine. It's right. But one thing I do want to talk about is because we mentioned the merits are still live and the statute of limitations. So I was rereading over the complaint. A lot of these, there were some time limitations here. Because if you're talking about Washington, you're talking about a year for defamation claims. And some of their claims arose in 2019. We're in 2021. I'm talking about May 2019. So if that's the case, then you don't have all that time, right? You got to refile this thing and have this thing live before those statute of limitations run out, right? You can't, because then you'll have a real problem. So I don't think they have all the time.
This is outside my knowledge. How does the statute of limitations work when you have pending litigation and then you have to refile it again? Do you get that time for free? Is it stayed? I don't know.
But right now, I don't even think they have a live case. You have to file before in the proper jurisdiction. My understanding, and it's from my understanding of defamation. And again, I don't practice in Minnesota, so Minnesota could have a different rule. But it's from the time that the defamation occurs and you're aware of it, right? So
yeah, the time you're aware of it.
Yeah, so you're talking about 2019, it's 2021. That 1 year clock is ticking fast, so it's not like they have a lot of time to redo this thing. You know what I'm saying? I think they're gonna have to jump on it because that I think statute of limitations clock is something that they still have to worry. But again, obviously you're talking about, whether you're talking about it in Minnesota or not. So I'm not sure. If we're using Washington law though, the Washington statute of limitations is going to apply, right?
Yeah, sure. If it's a Washington substantive law applies, then yeah, you'd apply Washington statute of limitations. Sure. You could bring claims both ways, though. You could bring defamation Washington law, defamation Minnesota law. You could bring them both. Why not? Let's just bring them both out.
Yeah. I don't know, because it's really where it happened. It kind of happened in both. I don't know. It's gonna be interesting, but I don't think it survives. Now let's go to Lori Ann being irrelevant. Now you called this early. You called this early. So I got
much consternation and criticism. By my commenters.
Now, I'm putting my arms up. You called it early. You said Lori Ann was irrelevant because of the standard for the motion to dismiss. So let's talk about it. I wrote this down. If the complaint were true, right? And the judge more or less said that if the complaint were true, Lori Ann really didn't have passive targeting versus directed targeting and the agency theory was not even mentioned. So the judge didn't buy all of that. You kind of hit that on the nail in the head. So what did you think about the judge? How the judge took all the Lori, because Lori Ann cost, let's just talk about Salts being on the phone with her for 16 hours.
Lori Ann cost a significant amount of value between both sides, between Brown and a significant amount of cost and pain. There were motions, there was declarations, there was sanctions motions, there was motions to qualify myself. Can I still be a lawyer? Responses to that, all because of Lori Ann. Lori Ann is probably $60,000 worth of costs just by herself. She's an expensive, and she got complete. So like $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, but it might be that much too by the time you're really calculating it out. We're talking about a lot of money. She got all that got burned up in like 4 words. Like it's like Lori Ann is not relevant. It's like poof, gone. I was like, it was okay. Yeah.
Forward, Lori Ann is not relevant, right? And for Saltz himself, he had 2 lawyers, 16 hours, it's like $16,000.
Yeah. 2 lalayers sitting on the phone call. All those emails, all those long hours with Brown, preparing making those affidavits, the 230 pages of emails. The sitting her down for 16 hours of painful long discussion, reading all those Instagram messages and reading all those Twitter messages and going to the depths of it all, and all goes poof. I mean,
Oh my God! But you called it though. Bravo. You said it. You said she's irrelevant, and she's going to be irrelevant moving forward too. Do you think? Because I think she's irrelevant to the definition.
No, she's only relevant to jurisdiction. I don't know if she has any. I would be very surprised if we see Lori Ann's name appear again. Because why would she?
Yeah. So that was something that I thought was fun. But we got a couple of questions.
Lori Ann, man.
Yeah, thank God. I know Lori Ann's probably like,
Lori Ann's finally out of this thing. She can breathe, man. I mean, there's no reason for her to bring her back.
I wanted to give this as an apology because I am using your stream.
Oh yeah, she was talking to Emily.
No, no worries. Emily's much love here. I watch her stuff. Yeah, Emily's.
Yeah, people were I deleted all the comments on my last live stream because people were being mean to Emily in my last live stream, and I was like, guys, gotta knock this off, man.
Yeah,
people trying to start wars, man. They love the drama so much. It's like, how do we start more drama? It's like, man, Lord.
Question: is there any time limit, or when they can refile? Obviously, the statute of limitations.
Statute of limitations is the big one.
Because that's the one thing that I would be worried about. But again, there may be issues or there may not. But I'm assuming there will be. Curtis saying it may be iffy, but we'll see. But I'm assuming they want to refile before it becomes a question. And I think May 2019 is when this stuff started rising. So they're probably, if they're going to refile, I would say they'll be doing it before then, or they may have an issue with losing some claims. But we'll see. Thanks for the questions, guys. If you want super chats, obviously get preference and just a tip question. And if we get to them, we will try to get to them.
So the next step, Baker on again.
Definitely.
Baker on again.
Yes. So next steps in this, I have here appeal and refiling. We can go through.
They're not going to appeal. There's no reason to appeal. There's no reason to appeal. It will take.
You want to appeal this?
It'll take 2 to 3 years to find out the answer. And what's the point? Who would appeal this? It's so much cheaper, and it'll be so much cheaper and faster just to go to Minnesota and refile it. Why would you appeal this?
They might just appeal it. Well,
I'm not saying they can't. I'm just saying I can't imagine why you'd want to. It's over, man. What you really want to? I mean, the Court of Appeals is going to take a year and a half to tell you the different answer. It's like, you really want to do that, man? Why?
You wouldn't appeal it to it. You would just be like,
no,
it's over. It's done.
Appeal this? Why? For God's sake, why would I appeal this?
I don't know. I listen. I'm with you. I don't think they will appeal, but we're talking about alternatives, things that they can do, and I think appealing is something that's there, right? They can appeal if possible. If this appeals, man, I'm gonna have to I don't know. I don't even know. Although on the plus side, it does mean that you and I can write amici briefs. That's true. Oh, possibly.
So yeah. So that's so if it does appeal, it means Emily can write an amici brief. You can write an amici brief. I can write an amici brief. All of LawTube can start writing amici briefs. It'll be great.
Emily says the law and the facts aren't there to appeal. I think the judge pretty much buttoned this up in a nice way where there's really, it's like, what do you want to do? Go file it in the right court. So, it's a tough loss for Salts. Now, what about the fact, now for refiling, let's talk about some of the good things for refiling. You have an already very well-written complaint.
Yeah, the complaint was very solid. Yeah, solid.
You have public support, right? You have a lot of great public support for this. And you have Salts. Salts is I think a plus when you have this. So what do you think about those things? You already have the complaint, public support, and you got Salt.
Yeah, the complaint is solid. I would spend time tweaking it if I were Salts. It's not a note of disrespect. It's just you got a little bit older, a little bit wiser, a little bit grayer, and so I'd spend a little time tweaking it, making some improvements, maybe throwing different causes of action. The complaint was solid. It was well written, and Salts is a good lawyer. I haven't seen a whole host of criticism for him. There's definitely been things I've disagreed with, but he's good. So yeah, Salts wants to continue. I imagine getting pro hoc vice will be no problem in Minnesota, so he should be able to continue. The complaint is basically ready to file. Maybe spend a month cleaning it up just to, polish it. You can, for example, look at all my wonderful videos that I've produced on the subject for those useful tips on how to improve the complaint. It's right there for you to have.
It's right there, right? All of it. They take all of our mental and they just put it right there and just write a perfect complaint. But I think Salt's complaint that he already wrote was good. Let's talk about some of the bad things, though. The bad things are the money, right? This was an expensive. We didn't even get to step 2, right? So everybody understands. So everybody understands. Katie never denied any of these allegations. She never said she didn't do any of this crap, right? She just said, we're in the wrong court. And the court said, yeah, you're in the wrong court. Go to the right court. So at this point in time, she never said she didn't do any of that shit. She didn't have to. She never, it's whatever she said was true. Okay, yeah, we're in the wrong court. Dismissed. So now going into that, you spent what, $200,000 both sides. Some people even theorize $300,000 on both sides, talking about everything all together.
That's a bit much for my taste. Yeah.
But I'm above 150,000 and maybe about the $250,000 mark, because of just the amount of time, the amount of lawyers was put in this thing, and we're talking about, we didn't even get to step 2, right? This was dismissed based on a motion to dismiss. So I think the money's a problem, but maybe Tati, she's $12 million, her net worth. Maybe it's just not a problem to her. I also think the defamation going again in Minnesota. It's not like this is a win for defamation. Me and Kurt both think the defamation claim is the one that's easier to attack, right? The defamation is the one that's easier to attack. If you're going to attack it, defamation is where I would have attacked this already on the merits, and I would have attacked it again.
That is one weakness in the complaint that could be really cleaned up if Saltz is looking for some notes. The way that the complaint was drafted, in my opinion, made the defamation a real linchpin of the other causes of action. So I think you need to rewrite that, and maybe the easiest thing to do would just be move defamation down in the causes of action, and maybe put it last as cause of action. And you need to like figure ways to separate it out so it doesn't look like second bites at the apple. Because one things that courts don't like is when you're just looks like you're trying to get a second bite at the same thing. And so if the first taste is bitter, the second taste will be just as bitter for a lot of courts. So if you're going to go down that road, you need to clean up that. And Emily was also noting that there's some cyber stalker laws in Minnesota. Couldn't really speak to those. I haven't looked at them. I don't know if they would be applicable or not, but that would be another potential cause of action that you could add if you're bringing this. So maybe.
Yeah. Possibly, but I honestly think the defamation is still, I understand a lot of people feel that the defamation is something strong, but there's just a lot there. I'll give my list of things where I think the defamation is failing. Just didn't really, the places where I would attack the defamation. Obviously, actual malice. I'm going after the husband as a public figure. I think I have more than enough to prove that, throw that out there. I think even if you don't get public figure for the husband, I still think you're missing negligence. And you know what I'll use the Washington filing. Look at all the research. They said I did, so negligence isn't there. Statements that are opinions. There are a lot of opinions in there that they had. She's a commentary channel, so I'm throwing out the Tucker Carlson and Rachel Maddow defense. And then, at the end of the day, I think the defamation is just a loser. I think the standard's too high, and I think she just has too much there to actually win on the merits. And I think that to pass a motion to dismiss on the defamation, I just don't really see it. I really see the stopping here be actual malice, and the husband being a public figure. I really don't think you get past that. But I don't know. How do you feel about that, Kurt?
I'm still less sold on the husband, a public figure thing. I think it's arguable. I think it's more likely, but I think there's some good counter arguments against it. Best arguments in favor is that he's a co-owner of the business, and his appearances on the channel can be, even though they weren't talking about the business explicitly, because they're in the same genre of the business, it could be seen as advertising related to the business. Because this is a marketing tip from Gary Vaynerchuk, incidentally, if you are a fan of his. Gary Vaynerchuk says everyone's business is first media, second whatever your business is. And he says that one of his advice he'll give a lot of people is, suppose that you're a hardware store. It's like, okay, what should you do? You should make videos about hardware things. It could be like how to build stuff. It could be here's what to paint a deck with. It could be, here's what different nuts are and how they are, right? So you're not even necessarily talking about the business at any point, but you're talking about things related to the business. You could have a whole podcast. You could get some This Old House people on, whatever, talking about hardware and talking about finishers. And the idea is that by talking about it, you gain potential customers from both the people you're talking to, literally, because they now know you exist, and also the people you're reaching out to. So if you're following that Gary Vaynerchuk marketing idea, then it could be argued that James is marketing the business, even though he's not mentioning the business, because he's still involved in the beauty makeup milieu that is related to his primary business. So he's in active promotion thereof. So there's that. And then because the business is a public person, and it's a closely held business, and he's a co-owner of business, there's that. And the fact he's appeared in the videos means he's injecting himself to the public. I don't think it's a gimme. I don't think it's a gimme, but I think it's arguably, and I think it's more likely, but I wouldn't be confident about it being a gimme for James.
So, in my notes about this, two things I wrote. The public figure for James, I honestly, I do think it's a gimme. So me and you disagree with that, but I also put negligence. I still think they'd lose on negligence, even if they lose the public figure on James, because of the things that we saw.
I think they're toast there. I agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think, like, for instance, the lawsuit thing, where she was like, James was, found to be a fraud in the lawsuit. We found that happened to be true, except it was overturned eventually, right? So it's like, but is it reasonable to say it? Yes, but is it reasonable that she didn't do the rest of the research to find that it was thrown out? No. So it's it's that type of thing. You know what I'm saying? And I think you really have to think. The one bar for defamation is truth. Was James found liable for fraud in a business suit? True. But it's also true that suit was thrown out, right? That default judgment was overturned because he wasn't served properly. So that's where I think, you mesh the truth with something that's absolutely true with kind of this defamation. You haven't given me the whole story. So, but again, we'll see. Thanks for covering. This is Rena. Thanks for $5. Thanks for covering the case. I appreciate the different points of view. I'm really hoping they don't appeal, though. But I think me and both uncivil won't believe they're going to appeal. One thing that I also want to ask you about: new lawyer for Katie. Do you think the plaintiff keeps Saltz?
I would. I mean, why not? There's plenty of great lawyers in Minnesota too, and Saltz may or may not be interested. Although Saltz has done lots of work with Tati in other cases, so I would have reason to assume. But yeah, I would think so. So yeah, my prediction would be yes.
Yeah, and I think I don't. Do you think without a crystal ball keeps Brown, or do you think she moves on?
No, I think Brown's done. I think Brown's all the done.
Oh, so my last thing is, what's the end game? What's the end game for Tati in this? Because you're out. We would just to be conservative. We're saying she's out 6 figures, right?
Yeah.
Where do you go from here? What's the end game? I should say. What's the end game for this?
The end game for Tati presumably is she wants, I would imagine, the copyright for the videos as part of her damages. She wants some sort of injunction, or she won't get an injunction from the court, but she would maybe be able to get some sort of agreement as part of a settlement to not talk about her anymore, something like that. So, I mean, the best solution for Tati really is some sort of settlement, because there's things she can get in a settlement she can't get from judgment. She can't get an order like that says, don't make any more videos about Tati, because that's prior restraint. Courts don't do that. They can order her to give up the copyright she already has. They can order her to, not make more defaming things, but they can't say don't make any more videos about her, and they can't require them to be reviewed in advance or something by somebody, because that's also prior restraint. So Tati's best solution really is a settlement, because she can get them to agree to not make any more videos, period, about the subject, and that all copyright from them will be automatically assigned, and we have the right to put it take down those, and blah blah blah. So yeah, that's the best solution for Tati. It's hard to believe Katie has any real money. I don't know where she's getting the money to spend this from. That's been massive speculation.
Yeah,
it doesn't seem like she would have the revenue for it. But yeah, it doesn't seem like Katie has money to make Tati whole. So I can't believe there's really money at the end of this rainbow. So yeah, the best solution for Tati really is try to force a complaint and try to embarrass them so much. For Katie, I don't know what her end game is. I mean, she can win it. She is some. I don't. It's going to be hard, but it's winnable. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can't get inside Tati's head, and I seriously doubt Saltz is going to take a call from me right now, because he's probably pretty busy.
People in the chat are saying that take the channel. Tati wants the channel.
Part of the damage. She might get that, yeah.
But again, I'm making another prediction. If it goes to Minnesota, I think a well-drafted motion to dismiss gets this case tossed again, and on the merits now, so that refiling is out. So, but again, but that's based on what the filings were now. We'll see moving forward what happens. Next, the next thing on my list is, what about mistakes? What do you think the key mistakes? Now, I'll give you my mistakes on, for instance, for Tati's side. I think Saltz went down the Laurier money pit, right? The judge, 4 words, she's irrelevant, right? And Saltz spent, I'm going to say from what he just put in the papers, maybe $20,000 on the phone with her for 2 days to get a statement that found out to be irrelevant. So I think a lot of time, a lot of money was spent in the Laurier money pit. The second thing is I spent, there was too much, time and money on other irrelevant witnesses, because it seems like everything after his response was irrelevant, right? All that stuff that he filed after that, those declarations, all that stuff seemed to also be irrelevant. Same thing with Brown too. I think filing it in the wrong court. This we all knew if they were serious about this. You filed it in Minnesota and your jurisdiction is not a problem. They played this game in Washington and now you're out 6 figures and you didn't even have a response. And then my last thing, is just overall, you wasted your client's time, you wasted your client's money. And we all know that if you file on Washington, now if you file in Minnesota, you could have avoided all that. So for Tati's side, I think those are the mistakes, but I think those mistakes are easily solvable if you got deep pockets. What do you think, Kurt?
Yeah, no, it sounds right to me, and I guess we'll have to wait, with bated breath for 5 seconds before the next installation of as the crystal ball turns. And the next episode of In the Crystal Ball Turns, we thought it was all over, but a figure from the past emerges unexpectedly.
Oh man! So
who is this person from the shadows that's emerging? It's Tati, who everyone has long since forgotten about. Tati re-enters the picture from the shadows. Dun dun dun.
Oh my God! So at the end of the day, is there anything that you think Saltz could have did better in this case that would have turned the outcome?
For jurisdiction, not really.
Yeah, you thought it was. You think looking back at it now, it was a loser, or even from the.
I don't think it was obvious in foresight, though. I don't think it was. I don't think it was obvious in foresight, so I don't really blame him. I mean, the only thing he could have done differently maybe would have been voluntarily dismissed and asked for dismissal without prejudice, so that he could refile somewhere else and avoided some of the stuff. But yeah, I don't think the jurisdiction issue was obvious up front. So I don't blame him for. Yeah, I mean, he could have filed in Minnesota, but he presumably filed in Washington because he's more familiar with the courts out of convenience or whatever else. But I don't think there's really anything he could have done to make the jurisdiction any better, because I don't think the facts are there. I don't think the facts are ultimately there to support jurisdiction. So I don't think it's an issue of knowing more stuff. I don't think they're there to be found.
Yeah.
So yeah, he needs to think through the defamation stuff, because that's going to be hard. He might want to think about dropping it. He might consider I know it's a tough sell, but you might consider dropping the defamation and going with the other theories, because they might be slightly better. Because I think the defamation is such a killer. That's the only other thing I can think to do.
Well, they said they have some online harassment stuff or something like that. Maybe maybe
you could drop the defamation completely and try this Minnesota on cyber harassment and try the IIED. IIED won't work. Try the negligent infliction of emotional distress
from the harassment, possibly, but
harassment.
But you're still going to have to. But no matter what you're doing, especially you're talking about statements made in public, you're still going to have to get over those simple concepts, because you still have the First Amendment. The courts still have to go about the First Amendment. So you're still going to have the actual malice to deal with, and you're still going to have the negligence to deal with. Even though we're talking about harassment, it's still you still the public figure status still means something in that context, I believe. But we'll see. Do you think? What do you think also about the spending too much time on irrelevant witnesses for Saltz? Do you think he overplayed the hand with the witnesses, with the Lauriers, for instance? Too much attention on irrelevance, or do you think it was just something that you had to do?
If we're going to talk about irrelevance, we got to talk about Brown.
Oh no, we're getting to Brown. Brown is next. Okay, yeah, Brown is next. Oh, Brown. He's
a king of irrelevance.
I got a whole list of stuff for Brown.
I wouldn't say that because he tried to save it with the agency theory. It didn't work for the reasons I thought. It was worth a try. I'm not even saying I wouldn't have done the same thing in his position, so I can't fault him for it. It didn't really work to do what he was trying to do, but yeah. He fought a good game.
Oh yeah. Here we go. If Tati is determined to press this, one, check the Minnesota laws on defamation and cyber harassment. That's just as we're saying. File in the right court. That would help. That would help. Stay focused on the issue and keep away from irrelevancies. And 5, don't multiply the proceedings. But I think that's more Brown than Saltz, but I think Saltz just got caught up into it because Brown. Thank you for the excellent super chat. Oh, this is great. But I think Saltz just got caught up in the fire And he got his ass caught out there. And now his client's looking at a motion to dismiss him about where the hell do we go from here. So what about Brown? So let's just we can go through the lit three. The number one, way too many goddamn filings. Too many filings, right? Way too many filings. Irrelevant filings. He's the one that started with the Lorianne junk. That's irrelevant witnesses. He had his client way too many declarations. He extended this. He multiplied this proceedings unnecessarily. Think about this. Most of his now motions, he had live motions that the judge didn't even speak to. She threw them out without even throwing them out, right? She didn't say, I'm not even, this is irrelevant. He had motions abolished. He didn't have the right paper. Like, what the hell?
The paper thing was a nice touch.
Yeah, it just was like Michael. I think Michael Brown. I say this. I think he won this case, but he didn't win it. I think Salt's reading the motion to reading the judgment from the court. It seemed like the court was relying more on what Salt said to throw it out than what Brown said to throw it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the court was like, well, Salts, you said that she was looking at the stuff in Hawaii. So, that's, you can't say that it was particular. You know what I'm saying? The court was like, I'll just use what Salt said and to let him know he didn't have a shot. Brown was just like the puppet that happened to be there to be annoying. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I did notice that KJ in her last live said something like criticism of me. She didn't understand why it was so critical of some of the things that Brown did, but I found a lot of it to be just completely unnecessary, exasperating, just poking, somewhat frankly unprofessional. Just because I just don't know why you need to be so antagonistic to the other side. And if it was all part of some grand strategy, then okay, but I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, we never could really figure out his legal strategy. His motion to dismiss, let's just call it what it was. It sucked, but it was enough to win. So, do you think it's money well spent, or do you think Brown loaded up the bill?
Well, I definitely think he loaded up the bill, to be quite honest, because I think a lot of these motions were completely unnecessary, and everything he files like couple $1,000 just in time, if not more. I mean, the one thing he asked for fees back was, he said was $18,000. If you take that as a figure, I mean, you're talking about some real money here. So I don't know if that was, I mean, he has to discuss all that with his client because he has to, keep the costs constrained, and he has to make sure that he's not following things that his client doesn't know about. So
thanks to for the 20s.
Yeah, I'm not accusing him of any wrongdoing here, but it was a lot of stuff that was kind of irrelevant. So, yeah.
I think at the end of the day, Brown also may have some ethics issues. Do you think the ethics issues survived the case, or do you think they're done?
With the Lorianne stuff, unless Lorianne presses it, probably not. Or Saltz does, but Saltz has potentially his own problems there too. So I don't know. So I don't really think so, because I think Saltz is probably more in the clear than Brown was. So the ethics thing, you were more on about than me. And I did notice in the comments to your last chat, the YouTube comments, that someone was like, "Well, Kurt doesn't get it. He doesn't. I'm surprised he doesn't see it." I'm like, I do see it. I just am a little bit less hawkish about it, perhaps too much so. But there were some things here that were a bit problematic, but I don't know. I'm not that hawkish about it, but I guess it's probably because I've seen some real bullshit, unfortunately, in law ethics, and I've seen some attorneys get away with some real bullshit and some real bad stuff, and I'm like, in the grand scheme of all the things, I don't know where this ranks. So there's that factor too.
Yeah, and that's fair.
But if I understood you correctly from the last time, you're ready to throw them up on the wooden piling and light it on fire.
No, well, just to be 100% clear, I think Brown's ethical issues with the statements that Lorianne, because I think if Lorianne at best was a proposed client, right? I keep saying proposed client, was a prospective client, right? Lorianne was a prospective client, and he owed a duty to Lorianne. And at one point, I believe that you could even say Lorianne was his client. And when that relationship did become adverse, I think you do have a problem. But I think maybe it just didn't become a problem, like because if Saltz was right and it just wasn't ripe, then it's not a problem as long as the motion is dismissing. But you still have the filings, him using, privileged material to fight, on behalf of another client. I think there may be some issues there. And sometimes these ethics issues, they survive the case. But again, I don't know if Brown actually made those violations, but everything that Solsi was reading seemed to be very much so saying that there was an ethical issue there that Brown may have to answer for. But again, nothing may come of it. Here we go. This is, I never know how to say this name. I know it's Mandarin, right? Mandarin Emirates. I hope I'm saying that right, but please spell out phonetically for me. Number one, Brown. Number one, learn Mitherin. Brown. Number one, learn to properly file a dismissal. Facts, right? That's what we've been saying that from day one. 2, don't file unnecessary motions. That's what we just got finished. 3, don't bring up things that are not yet issues. Facts. Stop multiplying motions. And 5, don't take it personally. You're a lawyer, FFS. That's true. I think at the end of the day, Brown did what she needed him to do. She needed Brown to throw shade. She needed Brown to be the boat. I think Brown was good for Katie because Brown was the right lawyer, was the lawyer that she wanted.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
from what people tell me about Katie, that does seem to be a bit of a consensus that she found the right lawyer for her.
Somebody who seemed to be like, hey, let's just throw everything at the kitchen sink and see what falls out. And it happened to be a motion to dismiss was granted. So, for anybody in the chat, this is for our last, 5-6 minutes here. If you have any questions, but what are your chances on what's your percentage on this actually being refiled, and how soon do you think it will be refiled?
I mean, I think the odds are pretty good of being refiled. I mean, I don't think there's anything that would dissuade them from filing again. So I would imagine sometime within the next month. I would say I think probably more than 2 weeks. So somewhere between 2 to 4 weeks is more likely. Take some time, clean it up. Assuming you haven't already found counsel, you need a found counsel there. Shouldn't be that big a deal. But yeah, I'd say, spend a little time, clean it up, refile. 2 to 4 weeks, we'll be at this again. If it winds up being tomorrow morning, though, that could be a thing too. I'll be like, well, here we are in the complaint. Now we can do a whole compare and contrast thing. So now we have a whole different field of law, right? We can take 2 different complaints, read them side by side, and do a whole compare and contrast about what has changed and what hasn't.
Well, that's so true. Here's a question: if they refile, is Nat also irrelevant, or would she still be a part of the case? What do you think? I think she's relevant for jurisdiction. I don't think she's relevant for the merits.
Yeah, again, I don't see any the issue. Yeah, there's no obvious reason that she's relevant because I can't see any issue that any of the people that we've talked about really are relevant. Personal jurisdiction has now been solved. We got that problem. We could still argue about subject. Well, we can't. We could argue about subject matter, but it's a loser. We have diversity jurisdiction. We could argue about total diversity, but it seems to be a loser. There does seem to be total diversity. We could argue about failure to join parties. It seems like a loser. I don't think there's any non-necessary party that hasn't been joined. And then we are on to the merits. Defamation, the issue is the videos. We have the videos, what they do or do not say. So unless any of these people edited the videos, starred in the videos, contributed to the videos in some way, they're not relevant. They're not relevant. The videos speak for themselves, and the only other commentary we need is from Katie Joy in what will be the longest depositions ever as we go through the videos, basically one at a time. And I definitely want transcripts of this deposition because it's going to go on forever.
Yeah, this is going to be never-ending deposition.
So other than Katie Joy, I don't really know what other witnesses you really need because, it's like, unless they could fight about authenticity, but I mean, you can just concede that. So like, whatever, it's like.
Amy says, Nathan Lawyer, why did you say appeal to stir up drama? No, we were talking about, all right. We're talking about legal options available to the plaintiff after they've gotten this. One of their legal options is they can appeal it. The other legal option is to file in the right spot. There is not just drama.
I mean,
it's about legal opinions.
I think as long as we're at it, Nate, why don't we just ask for certiorari before judgment? We'll just skip straight to the U.S. Supreme Court, and we can have a 9-0. We can have the 9 wise men argue about the finer points of Katie and Tati. We have Chief Justice Robertson. What is a Tati? It'd be great.
Yeah. So Amy. So yeah. So the reason why we're bringing it up is because it's just one of the options that we both don't think are going to happen. But it's good to let people know that they could appeal if they wanted to, but we don't think the facts are there for an appeal. We think they're done. Question. Do you think Brown exaggerated at all with this? At all with his resume, from the way it reads to what he filed? Yikes. Yes, I think that resume does not match those filings. That's all I can say about it. What about you, Uncivil?
Yeah, the filings have been somewhat of a surprise in light of the resume, but assuming that this is partly because he's trying to satisfy his client's temperament, then maybe he's great. Maybe he's fantastic. Maybe he's more of a chameleon. He's able to suit the needs of not only his lawyers, of his clients' legal needs, but also their emotional and dispositional needs. So maybe he's the best of us all, Nate.
Do you think Tati takes the evidence of KJ breaking terms of service to YouTube and take a channel down? I'm not sure she hasn't already done that. She probably that could have been something, because I would probably did that as a litigation strategy anyway, just to keep the pressure on. I like to keep the pressure on the defendants as much as possible. If I can push YouTube to start pressing the buttons on the YouTube side, then I would do that. But again, I don't know what their strategy was. Mithurin, sorry, I agree, and he agrees. He or she, I'm sorry, Mithurin agrees 2 to 4 weeks, leaning more to 2 weeks. I agree with that. I really think you got to get it done before May, because I think May is a real, then you start talking about, whether we're statute of limitations is hitting. Question, thoughts on Clark Swanson? Do you think Clark Swanson is the one, or helping out Katie, or do you think that was just a sidebar? You think it's a
well, that does seem to be a very plausible scenario. It would explain a lot of things. It would explain a person who has the ability to pay and a motivation. So I don't know if it's true or not, but it makes plausible sense.
Yeah.
I don't know if Swanson's getting anything that he wanted out of this, but assuming he's behind it at all, which I don't have enough information to know.
Yeah, it's again, I think it's going to be, I'm not. I don't know. I think Clark Swanson, it's a shadowy figure behind the scenes, but I don't know whether everything that we've been talking about, he may be financing. That's all speculation. We really just don't know. So Clark Swanson, he may have had nothing to do with this case, to be honest with you. But I do think that there's some connection. Obviously, his case and this case going at the same time, I don't think is a coincidence. But we'll see. Well, the only time will tell. Nate, the lawyer, just mentioned to me, everyone actually thought that might happen. I'm surprised everybody thought that might happen, but I don't think that. Yeah, that's about the what's it called? That's about the appeal. All right. So, any other questions? I got one more here. Nate, the lawyer, what happens if KJ runs out of money? Then she either represents herself or starts having a fundraiser. What do you think?
Yeah, basically, she can represent herself, or have Nick Rakita do it, or.
Riccietta. Well, maybe, at the end of the day, what do you find? Because obviously this case is not going on. Not going to end. Nobody believes this case is going to end. So are you going to still continue to cover it? And if you're going to still continue to cover it, how do you feel? How do you feel about this part of the case being vindicated about your legal reasoning? Because your reasoning was vindicated. There's no doubt about it. Moving forward, how are you going to cover it differently? Or are you going to cover it the same? And how do you feel about where this part of the case is ended?
I don't know, Nate. I don't know if I should cover it or not. I can actually get out. I could get out, be free. I get a clean break, Nate. And I could go back to my former life of what is a Tati. Never heard of these people. I could just erase it off from my mind. It's like, I never heard of a Tati. I never heard of a Katie. Who are these people? Are they interesting? So I don't know. Tempting. It's very, very tempting. I don't know.
So are you good? So you're not going to go forward?
I don't know, man. It's really tempting to not. I probably will though, but
you got to make a lot of people sad not going forward with this thing.
Well, I'll make the haters happy because they know I don't know what I'm talking about, so I might as well get out of this pool since I don't know anything I'm saying. Yeah. No, free as the wind blows.
You know what? It's
the grass grows.
One of the wildest things is that usually, like most of you people don't know this about me and Kurt. our legal reasoning goes really insane sometimes, where we're on the wrong side of issues where we even politically disagree. Like there's issues, that politically is against my political grain, but then I'll say, well, that's going to be the right outcome just because of the law. And a lot of times, even with these type of cases, that's what we try to do. We know our own biases, but one thing we do is we tell you, hey, these are my biases, but this is the reason why. And I think hopefully people can start listening to why we think these things are going to happen instead of just assuming that we have some bias. That I think that it'll help everybody understand. And again, I think we were able to get this right, not because we're any type of savants. It's just because, it's hard. Jurisdiction is something that the courts generally don't like. It's just something that's hard to get, especially in this particular context. And all the writing was on the wall. All the writing was right there. Last couple of questions. Can KJ sue Tati for legal fees? I don't think that's not going to happen. It's already dismissed. Question. I think KJ said she had insurance, so could that be helping her? Yes, insurance would be a good thing. If she did, usually, you know what? I'm assuming the company could have had insurance and could be paying Brown, because I've been involved in a couple of those. You have
think
directors and
without
officers
Crystal
insurance.
Ball had some insurance?
You could have DNO. They're called directors and officers insurance. She has a limited liability corporation.
Yeah.
They back the company, and the company takes care of them both. So that's true. She could have DNO insurance. So that would explain many things. And insurance lawyers, they go on the ground for you. But that's even better though. For if she does have DNO insurance, it's going to raise up her policy. But going into the Minnesota case, that's going to make it even better for her, right? Because she's not coming out of pocket; she's just paying the insurance premiums. Question: have you seen the video, Ted? Why is Clark Swanson in my DMs? It's not a KJ video. No, I'm sorry. Fortunately, I haven't. But maybe I will one day. I'm going to try to stay away from all the videos because I just like reading the papers and seeing what people present. Because if I watch those videos, it's going to taint me one way or the other. And I just really just want to what are you presenting? What's here? And if the papers are good enough, they can make the case. I hate reading a case and knowing past facts, because it makes me so biased on the papers where I'm reading things that are just not there. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So listen, at the end of the day, I want to thank everybody. It's like 566 people in here. I want to thank you guys for coming here and watching us spend this hour. I hope you guys learned something. And at the end of the day, do you feel vindicated, my brother? You are just a patent lawyer who knew nothing.
I still got the haters trying to dismiss me. It's like you're still biased because you're biased. I feel very vindicated. It's like it's like maybe I occasionally know some things I'm talking about, and yeah. So I did enjoy dunking on the haters last stream. That was a lot of fun, quite a lot. Yeah.
Did you see? I hope you did. I don't know if you saw my Twitter post. Nate was right. I was right. I was going crazy on Twitter. But hey, listen, this is not about us. We love doing this. We love looking at the law and just trying to figure these stuff out. All these issues are complicated. There's never really just a one right answer. But I think a lot of times, if you just understand the reasoning, no matter which way you come out, as long as it's well reasoned and well thought out, then hey, that's what we're about. We're about making the argument. So with that, my name is Nate Brody. That's on Civil Law. We want to thank all you guys for watching. Thank you again for all the super chats, and we'll see you next time. I think we got a lot of stuff coming up. We got Chauvin, we got Trump, we got like a whole plethora of legal issues coming out. Next week, we're going to be on Uncivil Law's channel. So don't forget to stop by there Wednesday night, 9 o'clock. Actually, we did this Tuesday at 9 o'clock. But next week, Wednesday, 9 o'clock, we're going to be on Uncivil Law's channel. I should be back at home with my old setup again. So is there any last words, Kurt, before we get out of here?
Nope, it's been fun as always.
Peace, people. Thanks for stopping by. Don't forget to do all that YouTube stuff. Keep the channel going. And my name is Nate the Lawyer, and I'll see you next time.